There was from Clement and Susan a little greeting, Granny, just to wish you a belated birthday. I don't know if you saw that little message pop up there. Just unmute your mom. I think we'll just leave it unmuted. Okay, so Yvonne.
Okay, now I've just unmuted you, Mommy. What were you saying?
Can't remember.
So it doesn't matter.
I don't know what I was saying.
So let's leave Granny.
My mind is a sort of a little bit gone a bonk.
Okay. So
no, I was just going to say that I saw the message. From
yeah. So if you need to participate, if you need to say something, just stick your hand up. Yvonne's going to be sort of the desk controller for this morning. We'll see how it goes. I hope you all brought your face masks because this is a social gathering and we do need to have social distancing of sorts. So I love mine. The only problem is that it always just steams up my glasses. Every time I breathe out, it's like fog. And then that's it. And it's usually like in the middle of a shopping center somewhere where I'm trying to navigate my way down an aisle or something. It's like, ugh, gone. Something that Susan said somewhere on one of the posts last week after the last week circle kind of caught my eye. And it was such a lovely comment. I think it came from your sister, Susan. You can unmute your mic because it'll be nice just to chat about this a bit. And that was, I think your sister said that, well, first of all, I think what happened is you'd seen that post that I did to BBD. This is just a corporate once every fortnight series that I'm doing for BBD because they say that their staff are in a bit of a bad way and they need some kind of sense, some kind of, not spirituality, but I suppose coaching is the best word, corporate coaching, just to help people get back on track somehow. And I think that this comment came from that, and more or less, just to paraphrase it, it was that we have a reptilian brain. Its default is flight and fight. It causes us to think and react first and to rationalize next. I don't know if I've sort of interpreted that well, Susan. Fairly much. And because of that, I think what the inference was is that we don't always get into to think positively. What happens is we tend to slip into negativity much quicker than we can ever slip into states of positivity. It always seems to be our natural default as a human being to have to work hard at getting into mind states of positivity, where it's always so easy just to slip into states of negativity. And I think you spot on the button, Susan, when you or your sister say that, why is this so? How come we've got this propensity for negativity and we have to really struggle to get into states of positivity? And I think it is that. I think that we look for patterns. If you take the brain, we've spoken about this before in various circle meetings before. In the evolution of us as a species, Homo sapiens, I suppose that very first thing that was very important for us, that first bit of evolution, was this thumb, this back-facing thumb, because it allowed us to grip onto things. And without a thumb like that, if we had a hand a little bit like some of the other animals, like dogs even, for instance, we wouldn't be able to build tools or do the kind of things that we're able to do with this prehensile thumb, or it's not a prehensile thumb, but the forward gripping thumb. And that was a sort of a remarkable step in evolution that allowed us to do amazing things with our hands. And then the next thing happened is that we were able to stand up. We became bipedal. We were able to stand on our feet and propel ourselves and become mobile and do all the things that we can do that animals just don't seem to have the capacity to do. So while evolution was busy transforming the body in amazing ways and adapting the body to the environment that we lived in and the way that we were sort of taking over control of this planet, it did an amazing thing in the evolution of the brain. It kept the old primitive brain intact, the spinal cord with those lobes, those primitive lobes right at the top of the brain that sort of plug into the very base of the brain. That old reptilian brain still exists in us humans. And it is very much, Susan, along those lines of reactive. It's very reactive brain. Its prime purpose, besides controlling bodily functions and things, its prime purpose is to look for patterns. It's very good at pattern recognition. And when it sees a pattern, it applies that pattern to a template of known patterns, if you like. And if it can find a pattern match, and it feels as though this pattern matches something that is safe, then it allows us to continue without reacting to that. We move into that space. Sorry, Yvonne whispered something in my ear and derailed me. But if that pattern, if that pattern is something threatening, then what happens is that it knocks us off kilter, and we react to that in a flight and fight way. That part of the mind is very much a pattern recognizer. And here's a little something that you can just try for yourself to see how quickly that back part of the brain responds to something known and well rehearsed. What is the answer to 5 multiplied by 5? And instantly you'll come up with 5 times 5 is 15, or 5 times 5 is 25. Tells you the number is correct. So 5 5s are 25. But if I had to ask you, what is the answer to 19 multiplied by 13? Then you sit there and you scratch your head a little bit. It's like, that's not so easy to work out. 5 times 5 just comes like that. But 19 times 13 is a much more complicated thing to work out, because we can't use this primitive part of the brain anymore. We have to bring that to the frontal lobes, and this is much more intensive on processing power to deal with it in the frontal lobes. And so I think that response, that default to fear, that default to caution, Susan, is very much part of our primitive response. Yvonne wanted to add something to that.
We've noticed that very much with our wolf, Wizzy. And we have to remember that we humans, we are evolved from animals. That's where that reptilian brain is. And if you look at Wizzy's behavior, she is amazing and loving and wants to play and everything. But the moment something comes into her awareness that she doesn't know, and even if that is just from me making a funny gesture with a new sound that she's not heard, like about 2 weeks ago, I started playing with her and I added a sound like this to her. And because she'd never heard that sound from me, she shied back. She went into protection mode. And that is exactly, it's the only thing she knows is protection. She only has that forward loving attitude with us because she knows us. The moment somebody else comes in that she doesn't know, she goes back into protection. And even if it's something from me that she doesn't know, she goes back into protection, fear mode, which is the fight and flight mode. So I think that is naturally there for that, to protect us.
So absolutely so. And when something derails us, like this coronavirus thing, then what really happened, and I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure you might have had much the same experience, and that is that in the beginning of this, we had no pattern to match this against. So we take the stuff that we're learning from the world, we're taking it into the brain, we're trying to process this. We are trying to process it rationally. That's very much what we've chewed on, like we chew on an old piece of biltong. We chew and chew on this, trying to understand what this is all about. But I think there was a subconscious response to this whole coronavirus thing long before I started to try to process this rationally, and that deep-seated response was one of fear. It was like, is this going to happen to me? Is this as bad as we think it is? Is this the Armageddon that half of Christianity has always been saying is going to come our way? Is this the end of the human species in a sense? And the initial reaction was one of fear. So that got me thinking a little bit during the week, and I was listening to, you may know of Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell is a prolific author and a writer, and I like his work a lot. And one of the Malcolm Gladwell's books that you may know about was his famous book called The Tipping Point. And the tipping point is this: how there comes a time somewhere in the world where things a reaction starts to take place. And most of the time it'll sort of come to a point and collapse back down, and there isn't a major junction in life where it changes the outcome of the world at all. But there are moments where it reaches that tipping point and it falls the other way. And as it falls the other way, it creates a pivotal point, a world-changing moment from which we can't go back. And Malcolm Gladwell's, one of his more recent books, I can't tell you the title now, I should have written it down, but it's the current Audible book that I'm listening to at the moment. But it's about a theory that comes from, and I did write his name down here, so I just want to grab his name. Timothy Levine. He's a researcher, and you may want to have a look at this little theory. So you may want to just make a note to it. Outliers. Thanks, Ken. That's exactly the book. And this is something you may want to take a little note of and do some research of your own during the week. It's called Truth Default Theory, and the researcher is Timothy Levine. And what truth default theory is about is that when we interact with people, our default socialized setting is to accept what people say as if it were the truth. Very, very seldom do we even have the tiniest thought in the back of our brain that this person might be lying to us, that this person might be out to deceive us. And why would that be important? Because in our socializing, it's very important that we accept fairly, I see that Zoom says we're running out of time. If we do run out of time, what we'll do is we'll just log out and log back in, guys. But this, it's important in our society to assume that everyone is truthful, that everyone is sort of abiding by the social norms, that we're all in this together, that we're open and honest with each other. And so the default setting is that we want to accept people at face value. And people who deceive can with a very straight face just deceive us. A good example of that is, let's say a woman. I don't know why I use women. That's sexist. But let's say a wife has a feeling that her husband's cheating on her. I suppose because guys cheat more often than women, but that's a sexist thing too, because I think it's just the other way around. Having done all the therapy over all of these years, anyway, I think it's maybe 50-50. Recovered from that. But let's say that a woman suspects that her husband is cheating on her. But she'll find every excuse in the book to rationalize away from that belief. She has the evidence. The evidence is just staring at her in the face. Things just don't add up. And yet her default setting is default to truth. Her trust, her socialization is to default to truth. Anyway, it's a lovely theory. And what has it got to do with the coronavirus thing? Well, I think I'm starting to believe, I'm not a great one for conspiracy theory, but I really do believe that there's a whole hidden agenda behind this, and that we're not really being told the full truth. And even here in South Africa, guess what? This lockdown has become ridiculous. I see that the DA is trying to push in the Constitutional Court for relaxation of some of the things. What has the health and the need to prevent the spread of this virus got to do with things like prohibition of cigarettes, blimmin' nighttime curfews from 8 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning? What has it got to do with all of these crazy laws that we see promulgated, that you can't buy booze and all of these kind of things? It's got nothing whatsoever to do with the protection of people and the mitigation of the risk in terms of coronavirus. And this whole thrust also about viruses and vaccines in order to prevent this. Mark my words, and Yvonne and I have spoken a lot about this. It'll be like the yellow fever vaccine. You won't be able to travel anywhere in the world if you don't go and get this blooming coronavirus. You're going to have a yellow card like we had with yellow fever and smallpox and things, and you have to go to a travel clinic, and you won't even be allowed out of your own province if you have this in the future. Yes, Pam just coming in. And so I think we've got to be very wide awake as to how all of this is unfolding, so that we don't get sucked into some of this craziness. I think that we've got to be very careful. Hello, Pam. I think we've got to be very careful that we don't have the wool pulled over our eyes. And I also feel very strongly that we can't let fear, which might also be part of that default setting, that we get sucked into panic mode through some conspiracy theories and things that can be a little bit wild. I don't say that they're not based in truth. I think we have to create a balance here. We have to set aside our fear. We have to keep our awareness fully sharpened, and we have to just listen not only to the populist story that is being given to us by governments and things, and fall into this trap of truth, into truth default theory. We have to just keep this our brains so wide awake so that we see both sides of the story, and we position ourselves in a place of responsibility, both to those that we love around us, as well as to those, to society. So is there such a thing as the coronavirus? I don't know. Is there such a thing as a mental illness? Well, you can't take a blood test and know that you've got a mental illness. All of those things that you find in the DCIM, they're diagnostics that have no laboratory test behind them. Is there a virus? Well, I don't know. There's something that's causing people to get sick. And is it pushing towards this thing of worldwide conspiracy of putting money in Bill Gates' pocket and Anthony Fauci because they are the custodians of viral research? It's going to make them rich. Has the world conspired this to bring this illness about? I doubt it. I doubt that they would trash all of the business and airlines and the world economy in order to promote one sector of the economy to get rich. I don't think that. Are we going to get a backlash in terms of social control? Are we going to be forced to have apps on our phones in order to be controlled in terms of our movement? I think so. And I think countries like America, after 9/11, look at the controls that came in with TSI. TSI, that Homeland Security, popped into existence after 9/11, and it has never, ever been relaxed. There's a more and more of a stronghold. If you look at Asia and the way they are controlling their population now, in terms of apps and monitoring and seeing where people go, I think that is going to be our biggest threat going forward. The forced vaccines, I'm, for one, don't want to have a vaccine. I really don't. I'm very suspicious of it. I think that I can deal with my response to a virus in my own way. And I do believe that the evolution of the body is that we need to touch the world. We need to breathe it in. We need to create antibodies to it. That's the way this evolutionary machine was designed. Am I saying to you, don't go and get a vaccine? Hell no, certainly not. But I really do believe that by wearing masks and putting gloves on and sanitizing, what we're doing is we're lowering our immune system, not increasing it. And sooner or later, we will be reliant on things like vaccines. Whereas right now, I don't think we need those vaccines. I suppose if I want to go and see Marlene in Switzerland somewhere in the future, or if we want to go and live in Switzerland, we're going to have to comply. And the only way that we can do this is through some kind of vaccine passport. And I don't know what I'm going to do then. Maybe I just have to bite the bullet and have the injection, or pay 2,000 or 5,000 rand to the medical practitioner and say, stamp it in my passport, but please don't inject it in my body. I probably will do that, to be quite honest. And then I'll have the free ability to travel. Zoom is probably watching this, and I'm going to get to see the FBI knocking on the door one day. That's just tough. I don't care. Yeah. So, where do we go with this? Well, this is all negative stuff. So please do your research on Truth Default Theory by Timothy Levine. It's interesting stuff. The book, Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, is also very interesting. Thanks for the title, Ken. And in fact, Ken, I don't think it's that book. I will WhatsApp the book. I'll WhatsApp the name of the book to everybody. It's a more recent book than that, Ken, I think. But anyway, I'll get it to you. But I want to end on a different note. And that is that I went back to A Course in Miracles, and I was thumbing through A Course in Miracles. And we haven't spoken about A Course in Miracles for a very long time on the circle. It sort of slipped into obscurity a little bit. And this was prompted by something that Beatrice had WhatsApped me during the week. And this was about karma and in particular about past karma and how past karma is responsible for where we are right now in terms of this body. Our past karma, let me put it another way. Let me put it in layman's terms. Who we are today is absolutely determined by everything that we have ever done, thought, or said in the past. Every single thing that that's entered into this brain of ours, that's come through our mouth as words, that's come as thoughts, as actions, as deeds, has shaped us into who we are today. Who we will be tomorrow will be dependent upon the choices we make between now and tomorrow. And that's all about karma. And it's so nice. Maybe Yvonne and I are already saying once this lockdown is over, we're going to find time, maybe over December, if that's what the universe has as a plan. And we want to do a Gita retreat. And we want to talk about that because all of these principles are embodied in the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. And it'd be nice to do one of those retreats and just speak about this again and refresh all of those principles. But the same theme is carried forward into A Course in Miracles. And what A Course in Miracles is teaching is that illness is a manifestation of fear. If we can get rid of fear, if we can mitigate fear, we in an instant will change the illusion of illness and bring about health in the body. Now that sounds like a miracle, and I suppose that's why the book is called A Course in Miracles, because it goes back to those ancient teachings of the Gita. If we are today a result of every single thought, idea, and word that we've ever uttered in the past, then part of who we are today is our illness. And if fear, then, as the Course in Miracles says, contributes to that illness because it creates this illusion of vulnerability. It's part of the ego. The ego is not only about going out there and grappling with these things that are called status and a new pair of Prada or another trip around the world because we can, or with those Steyn parking another Rolls Royce in his marble floored basement here in Steyn City. We think of the ego in terms of that acquisition of egoistic things, but ego is also responsible for harm to the body in terms of thoughts of fear that it entertains, vulnerability, that we're weak and we're never going to survive. And these thoughts of fear, as they come into the body, according to those laws of karma, are also going to determine who we are and what this body is in this moment. Our best defense right now against this coronavirus, I think, stillness, peacefulness, positivity, quietness, letting go of the fear, prudence. I think that we have a brain, we have this forebrain, and it's nice to use this forebrain in order to open up the world and see how, open ourselves to rational thinking. We have that capacity, it's a gift of ours. And so it's nice to look at the conspiracy theories and look at them against good science and apply good science principles to them, but not to be overwhelmed by science and be slaves to what science says, because we know that science has an inherent bias. Who funds science? The corporations who make who take the patents that science invents or discovers, and they take that and they make money about it. So there's an inherent bias in that. And so I think one needs to use all of these tools: heart, being, presence, subsidence of fear, rational thinking, and these are the very best tools that we have to get through this time. I'm cut full with lockdown right now. The rebellious side of me right now kind of says, oh, by the way, Granny, cut full means I've had it. I've had enough of it. I'm at that stage now where I just want to sort of rip off the stupid mask. This thing is getting me now, and just go back out into society and just get on with it. And if I get arrested, well, too bad. But then I don't want to sit in a South African jail either, because I think that would be too bad. But I think this thing is not half as bad as we made it out to be. And maybe our reaction was one of caution first, like Suzanne had pointed out, and then to come to this place where we can sort of take a breath, let all of this pass, get back to some kind of normality, let go all of this fear, come back into our rational thinking, and go forward from there. So we've got a couple of questions. Let's just see how we go. Yvonne will invigilate these questions. If you want to open up your mic and answer them, then just stick your hand up and we'll give you a chance. I don't know how long Zoom will keep us alive, but we'll field questions until Zoom kills us.
I just would like to add something here, because when you alluded to the Course in Miracle that we haven't used for a long time. But the First Nations say actually exactly the same thing as the Course in Miracle. And they say, and I was looking for the message that I got a few weeks ago, the contract we made was set before we arrived. And that reflects exactly what the Course in Miracle says. So whilst the Course in Miracle is something modern, the Course in Miracle doesn't exist since very long, but the First Nations belief is aeons old, and they say it's exactly the same as the Course does.
So Yvonne, did we get some questions? I think I saw something from Magda. My connection's a bit bad. Okay, so you didn't catch anything. I am recording the sound of this, not the video, because it's just a montage of people. So I am recording the sound, and if anyone would like a link to that sound recording, then I'll just post it up on the Circle of Friends, or for those of you that are not part of the Circle of Friends group, then I'll just post it to you privately. Any questions? Any comments?
Just raise your hand so I can unmute mics if anybody wants to ask something.
Oh, Clement. Let's go with Clement first.
Clement?
I'll just let Clement unmute his own mic.
There we go. Oops.
Yeah. Otherwise,
you
you're
go.
contending there for
Okay,
the button.
you do it. You do it. Clement, you unmute yourself then. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
I think a lot of Tom has spoken for a lot of our dissatisfaction with the situation, of this deep-seated longing for the positive things of the past, like being able to hug each other and move freely and those things. And a lot of the insecurity that we're feeling is because these are uncertain times and we don't know what to make of it. And that, to me, is echoed by the government. They make missteps and they get things wrong, and they may be impinging on our personal freedoms, etc. But I feel at a very deep level that we've done a lot of good for people who are at risk. And a lot of people have made huge sacrifices to support that. And we can only do our best to try and get through this in a sane way. But we have to take the positive out of this. The earth has had a chance to breathe. People have changed a lot of things, and there has been some changes in the way we see things. So the whole may not be able to guide us. I second your views on just wanting to run outside, go back to the people I haven't seen in weeks, get back to the way things were, and but there is positive in the situation. So we're going to have to, as individuals, choose which way we want to respond to it.
I so agree with you, Clement. And you know what? That's a gift that I feel we've all given to Mother Earth. And what is absolutely amazing, it's astounding, that she bounces back so quickly. It only took a few months, 3 months, since December, let's say January. And look at how amazing nature is at bouncing back. That is just astounding. In some respects, I hope another airplane never gets off the ground again. But then, we are in a modern world, and how do we learn from this? How do we move forward from this? My despondency is that somewhere I feel that the world is sort of mismanaging this. It's either too clumsy or it's over prescriptive. And I think we're going to see a lot more restriction on us in the future. And how are we going to deal with that? That's something that I'm a bit worried about. And I know you come from, you and I have worked together in IT for many, many years together. That's where we know each other. And we know what IT is capable of in terms of scraping off data and prying into people's lives. And you'll remember one day how we knew exactly how a certain individual was going around and shopping and where she had gone and done her shopping and what her activities were, because we were doing credit card processing and we were tracing her account. We weren't allowed to do that, but it just so happened to be the data that we could see. And no, not you, Omar, no, definitely not. This was somebody else. But I'm worried about that, and how much civil liberties are we about to give up, and at what point do we take a stand? But in terms of nature and her recovery, Mother Earth's breathing again, I wish that we could just take this and learn a lesson and use this as an opportunity to give up fossil fuels and all of those things and get on in a cleaner way, coexisting with nature. Ken, you wanted to say something?
Whilst Ken sorts his mic, if we come